Apartment horrors. We lived in a hostel then. My parents and my brother and I. We lived together and had fun. Two modest rooms, well, I didn't have to choose, and they were happy about it. My brother and I slept in a separate room on a bunk bed. As the eldest, I slept on the second floor, well, sometimes we changed places for interest. Everything was fine, but we only had a guest. I fall asleep for a very long time, I can spin for hours and only fall asleep after 11. Parents constantly scolded because in the morning it is impossible to wake up to school. Our floors were squeaky, especially in the corridor. Any slightest movement was voiced by the squeaky floor. For many years everything was quiet and peaceful, and then it started. As soon as the whole family went to bed, my brother usually passed out. As soon as his head touched the pillow, the creaking of the floor from slow steps was heard in the corridor, and, of course, these steps were directed to the nursery. A curtain separated the corridor from our room, but she never moved when those footsteps approached us. You lie and listen, creak, creak, creak. It's getting closer, and it stops at the headboard in silence. What's it? My heart starts pounding loudly and furiously, as if it wants to break out of my chest, my temples throb wildly, my body becomes cold and wet, it's scary to move, and even more so, to turn around to look. I want to open up, but not, a blanket is at least some kind of protection. My body is already numb, but I still endure, and do not move. The entity is standing nearby and that's it. I do not know if he is tall or small. If he is tall, then he looks at me point blank, and if he is small, then his brother is out of luck. Although he doesn't care, he's sleeping. I was in such a state of shock for 10 minutes, and I don't remember falling asleep. In the morning I told my parents, they say they also heard a creaking in the hallway. This happened again in about a day or two. The main thing is to fall asleep before my parents went to bed, and I rarely did it, so I snatched shock therapy. Sometimes my brother and I heard these steps together, but we were scared silent and fell asleep in horror, and in the morning we shared our impressions. Already before going to bed we read Our Father. The result is zero. Sometimes these steps, standing near our bed, also creaking, slowly moved away towards the parents, then in the morning they told about their impressions, that someone was walking in the room. One night, with a terrible roar, the laundry cabinet opened, as if they were trying to tear out the door. It was very scary. This went on for 2 years. And before moving to a new apartment, my mother had a dream. Everything was as if in reality. Evening, everyone went to bed, and mom went to the front door to lock it with a key. We always just closed up before going to bed. And just as mom stretched out her hand to turn the key, the door opened abruptly, and the deceased grandfather stood on the threshold with a wand in his hands, although he never walked with a wand during his lifetime. He stands and is silent, there are no pupils, his eyes are completely white. Mom started backing away in horror and woke up from fear, and then she heard someone tapping on the furniture with a wand, and then this knock gradually subsided, as if it had moved away. We decided that such a dream was for moving, although it was not news to us. We waited for the long awaited move. Well, we thought it was over, now we live. And it wasn't there. While our new apartment was being renovated, we rented another apartment for a while, because new houses were rented with Soviet wallpaper, white painted doors, etc. And it was necessary to do the whole apartment completely. We rented a spacious 4-room apartment, by the way, also of new construction. Now everyone had their own room. I took one of the large rooms, 25 SQ.m, I think. This is a class, the apartment is super. But we were not happy for long. Some kind of entity lived in this apartment. And the inexplicable rushed. I went to bed and literally 10 minutes later I hear snuffling behind my back. Someone is lying in bed with me. I'm afraid to turn around, and again as before, a frenzied heartbeat, then I'm drenched, paralysis has shackled my whole body, I lie and listen. Someone is breathing in the back of my head, brazenly and persistently breathing, his breathing is confident, even and deep. And I'm afraid to even take a deep breath, but I really want to, there is not enough oxygen in the blood. It's scary to jump up and run away, too, to scream, I'm afraid to move. I'm lying down and I'm not showing signs of life. Capits. I fall asleep in such a state of shock. Now our morning started with such questions. Well, was it quiet at night? Who had what going on? I took a dog, a toy terrier, to my bed, although it's not so scary to sleep. When it was quiet, the dog was sleeping normally, and when the essence was breathing in the back of the head, the dog struggled, bit, growled, tried to escape, but I held her with an iron grip. To be afraid, so together. My brother and I had quarrels over the dog, with whom she would sleep, so that it would not be so scary. Then my father told me that one day he woke up at night from some loud tapping with his fingers on the door. He, without hesitation, shouted, "Hey, enough," and silence immediately followed. And one more thing, one day he lay down to sleep, and then he felt pressure in his chest and the lack of oxygen. I woke up abruptly because I couldn't breathe air. My parents worked day and night at that time. Sometimes my brother and I spent the night alone because my parents were at work, but we are already adults. I am 16 years old, my brother is 14. And somehow I come home around 10 p.m, there is no one at home. Well, I go into my room, sit down at my desk and start finishing my lessons. The bed was 4 meters from the table. Suddenly I hear someone breathing like a sleeping person on my bed. I turn my head, no one. I'm sitting, listening, it's sleeping, and it's breathing so loudly. I think, they say, what should I do? I'm home alone, how to go to bed myself, I need to wake him up. But how? I decided to go to the kitchen and start peeling walnuts, the noise will probably wake him up. I broke nuts with a hammer on the tile for 10 minutes, I tried, it was very loud. Well, I think I probably woke up and got out of bed. I go in, sit down at my desk, write, listen. Silence. No one is snoring on the bed anymore. Woke me up. Hooray. I quickly spread out the bed and went to bed, taking the dog to myself, of course. There is one thought in my head, if only I didn't breathe in the back of my head. Somehow my brother and I quarreled and went to different rooms to go to bed. After about 15 minutes, my brother flies into me and with a pleading cry and tears, please, I beg, can I sleep at your place? At the feet, on the floor, anywhere, but I won't even go into my room. It turns out that he played the PlayStation console, turned everything off, and went to bed. Suddenly there was a blow, and this console flew with a crash from the table to the floor. And then someone began to move his hands along the wall, and the sound began to approach his brother. He jumped out of bed and came running to me. I made fun of my brother a little, I didn't let him in right away, because they quarreled, but of course they slept and trembled with fear in my room. We also had a billiard table in the back room, and we began to notice that the balls were collected in a triangle in the evening and scattered all over the table in the morning. Even at night they woke up from the impact of billiard balls, but no one dared to go to watch. If he's there, then you need to fall asleep faster, well he's not breathing in the back of his head. My sister even came to me, and at night she woke me up and said that someone was playing billiards, and I said, they say, go and see. I was joking. I was no longer afraid because I slept with my sister in the room. And the entity was constantly scattering balls from the triangle. In the evening we will add up, and in the morning everything is scattered on the table, and the triangle lies empty. A lot of things happened. Mom said that at night she heard someone opening drawers in the kitchen, making noises with dishes. It's scary to go and watch. Also in those days, the lights were turned off by the hour in the evening. My brother and I sometimes invited the bravest friends home. Extreme experience. We all sit in the kitchen by candlelight and offer those who want to walk in a dark apartment. No one has ever dared. There was a very clear sense of the presence of this entity in the dark. Sometimes they even closed the door to the kitchen because it felt like he was standing in the dark and looking. So we lived. We suffered for almost a year, then we moved to our new apartment and there were never any problems anymore. No one in the family was afraid to get up at night to drink and pass without light. Everything was quiet and peaceful.